The sun dipped low over Dustwood, casting golden and orange hues across the weathered wooden buildings of the sleepy town. A light wind stirred up scents of hay, earth, and a subtle sharpness that hung in the atmosphere. The bell on the general store's door tinkled softly as folks came and went. But there she stood, rooted to the spot at the counter, her hands clutching the scarred wood as if it were her last lifeline. Her eyes widened as the clerk shook his head and delivered the blow. "Sorry, Mum, we're all out." And then, store policy, no credit, no exceptions right now. Her stomach dropped, a deep ache spreading through her chest, stirring up old memories of empty bellies, stubborn pride, and the pile of unpaid bills she'd tried so hard to ignore. She scanned the cramped store, seeing the locals absorbed in their own routines, their faces fading into a haze of apathy. For the first time, the crushing pressure of the world felt personal, like an unspoken judgment that she didn't quite fit in a place where getting by required grit, fortune, and bold moves. As she pivoted to leave, her posture sagging and tears prickling at her eyes, the door groaned open behind her. The deliberate thud of boots on the plank floor made her stop short. He was a towering figure, built tough, carrying the aroma of worn leather, horses, and an elusive edge that charged the room. His hat shaded keen eyes that sized her up in an instant. Not just her looks, but her resolve, her desperation, and the spark she kept buried. In a voice steady and authoritative, he leaned in a bit, tipping his hat, and murmured words that would stick with her. "Come ride with me. I'll make sure you have plenty to eat tonight." Shock hit her first, a mix of dread and doubt churning inside like a whirlwind. In Dustwood, outsiders didn't hand out favors without strings attached. But there was an unshakable confidence in his tone, a quiet strength that held firm, highlighted by the evening light etching lines on his rugged features. It pulled her in, like a force drawing her from the rut she'd been stuck in. She paused, eyeing the bare shelves, the detached townspeople, and the relentless grind that kept blocking her path. Then, gut instinct won over logic, and she gave a small nod, a tiny gesture that kicked off a chain of events. Climbing into the saddle, feeling the coarse leather and the horse's restless huff, she sensed her life veering onto an uncharted course. The distant skyline, once just a vague wish, now called to her like an oath. Their departure from town started quiet, with only the steady clip-clop of hooves on parched ground and the rustle of wind through scrubby plants. Questions burned in her mind. Who was he? Why this? But his aura seemed to hold secrets she wasn't ready for. So she let the quiet linger, her anxiety and intrigue clashing in a build-up of tension, as the sun sank and canyon shadows stretched long. Then, in a tone firm and low, he broke the hush. "You don't owe a soul anything this evening. Tonight, you'll have your fill, no more refusals." Those words landed like a revelation, quickening her pulse and dredging up every past denial, every time she'd reached for more only to be shut down. She swallowed the lump in her throat, her tight shoulders loosening a touch. For once, someone saw her as worthy of more than scraping by, offering not sympathy, but a real shot at something better. A fragile hope flickered to life inside her, persistent against the odds. As the terrain spread out in the fading glow, peaks and valleys bathed in twilight. This wasn't just a trip, it was a call to action, a dare to grab back what she'd nearly lost. Deep down, she knew saying yes would upend everything, because in his bold, defiant proposal, she caught the silent vow of liberation, a meal to quiet the emptiness, a path to hush the doubts. As the breeze tugged at her hair and his outline blended with the fading light, it hit her clearly. Dustwood and everything else would never look the same. With the earlier stars twinkling in the deepening blue above, She clutched the reins tighter, her heart racing with a blend of fear and thrill. The hours ahead were vast, the way ahead unclear, but for the first time, the journey wasn't ruled by rejection or hopelessness. It belonged to the wild, boundless potential at her side, a nudge that some opportunities called for bravery, and some existences demanded a bold step forward. If she made it through, she'd always remember the stranger who dared to give her more than mere existence, who promised abundance and a sense that she counted enough to keep going. The darkness unfolded as they pressed on under a canopy of stars, each one a speck underscoring how trivial their woes were against the endless desert. Yet how profound every throb of the heart felt when laced with want, aspiration, and echoes of lost ambitions. The woman, whose name he'd soon discover was Clara, clung fast, the horse's cadence like a fateful rhythm bouncing off the canyon sides. For months, she'd felt like she was fleeing, but now it seemed she was chasing something elusive yet full of promise. Something raw and implicit in the quiet of this nameless man. At last, with the moon climbing high and the desert's cold nipping through her light wrap, he pulled up by a slim gully where water shimmered and murmured over stones. "We'll stop here," he said, his words soft but assured. She dismounted, legs shaky not only from the travel, but from the dawning truth that she'd abandoned it all. The shop, the stairs, the humiliation. For this, a modest campfire in the wilderness, a stranger's assurance, and the hint of a fresh start. He unpacked gear with practiced ease, no rush in his motions, the poise of someone shaped by long trials and isolation. He passed her some dried meat and a flask of water, observing without a word as she ate, as if he knew starvation too well to condescend. In the fire's gentle pop, Clara ventured a near whisper. "Why me? Why help?" His gaze, shadowy and inscrutable, rose from the embers to hers, holding her breath in suspense. "Because," he replied plainly, "someone once did it for me, and it stuck with me." The statement lingered like the rising smoke toward the heavens, tipping her world off, kilter, as if fate was tuning in. They exchanged few words after, but the quiet shifted. It wasn't hollow anymore, buzzing with curiosity's subtle respect, the odd solace of two people who'd faced too many turnaways and finally shared a sliver of mercy. As morning light bled across the sky in soft purples, pinks and golds, the man, now known to her as Jace Maddox, ex-rancher turned wanderer, readied the horse and signaled her to join. This leg felt easier, buoyed by direction. When the path widened to show a cozy farm tucked against the slopes, modest yet vibrant, Clara's chest tightened in astonishment. Kids' giggles floated from the enclosure, birds scattered by the barrier, and chimney wisps carried the aroma of baking loaves on the breeze. Jace glanced her way, a subtle grin playing on his mouth. "The Thompsons. I lend a hand now and then. Solid folks. They need help, and maybe you need a spot." The offer struck deeper than any handout, free of condescension or obligation. Woven with faith, openings, the conviction that she could fit in once more. So she lingered, at least for the day, assisting Mrs. Thompson with baking, scrubbing grime from her palms, chuckling softly as a kid dusted her dress with flour. Come dusk, the broad table sagged under hearty soup, warm biscuits and garden veggies. For what seemed an eternity, Clara dined without shame or worry of dismissal. Jace sat opposite, ever reserved, his steady gaze holding a quiet warmth that spoke volumes. Later, under the resin moon as the home hushed, she wandered out, the crisp air on her skin, and spotted him by the rail, gazing into the night. She drew near, pulse quickening, puzzled by how the stars lit him and stirred her, then murmured, "You made good on it. My table's overflowing." He turned, his faint smile growing. "Said I would." After a beat, he continued, "But it's not only about the food. It's learning to keep it that way on your own. His insight flared like a match on tinder, kindling a fierce resolve within her. She saw then that his gesture wasn't rescue. It was a prompt that she held her own power. As days blurred into weeks, Clara labored with the Thompsons, growing, mending, discovering delight in everyday tasks. Each twilight, when Jace returned from his rounds with goods or tales, they'd swap stories by the hearth, chuckles blending with the evening's drone, their connection deepening not from passion but shared endurance, revived dreams. Yet one evening, as clouds gathered heavy with storm and far, off rumbles echoed over the ridges, a dusty rider burst in, panting, calling for Jace. In that flash, their fragile calm wavered. The man leaped down, urgent and winded. Hollister's crew, they're coming, torching whatever's in their path. Jace's face hardened, turmoil in his stare, and he met Clara's eyes. That initial fire now amplified, honed by responsibility and an indefinable pull. Softly, he said, "I've got to head them off. They'll strip it all bare otherwise." Fear knotted her insides, but before she could respond, he went on, "Your call, Clara. Flee or come along." The phrase, straightforward yet profound, bore the essence of their growth. As gusts swept the gorge and rain pelted down in fat, quivering beads, Clara realized there was no debate. She advanced, gaze determined, tone firm despite her inner shake. "I joined you once for a meal. I'll join now to guard it." With that, they saddled up, lightning splitting the sky, the dark humming with peril and fate, riding into the tempest together, each flash revealing their set, bold expressions. The universe seemed paused. Redemption sometimes hides not in tranquility, but in braving the blaze. As they vanished into the shadows, their unyielding spirit turned into folklore, murmured around Dustwood for generations. How, when life turned its back on her, a drifter offered a spark of possibility, and side by side, they forged their liberty on the storm's brink. If tales of resilience, spirit, and renewal stir you, the fire that fuels you through the chill, stick around, because adventures like this are only the start. 3. Force expert,